houses that grow tomatoes. We'll be looking at solar farms, and we may be looking at some types of commercial investments, and we'll be also looking at that core infrastructure. Now, typically for retail investors, the core infrastructure tends to be very, very large, but on a smaller scale there are opportunities. So, what types of investments are there for people? So, on the equity side, and I'll talk about equity and debt in just a couple of seconds, but the equity side is direct equity investment. That is directly investing in a project that owns a school, owns a hospital. And that is typically very hard to find unless it's a very large infrastructure company listed on the stock exchange. Listed infrastructure funds, the likes of HICL, are available on the stock exchange that you can go into, and they have typically a large scale of PFI, PPP contracts. There's also unit trusts and OICs that are infrastructure focused, so you'll find them if you look under your infrastructure and OICs lists. There's also IHT funds that your wealth managers can recommend that invest into infrastructure. Those IHT funds also invest into debt. Other things that go into debt, crowd bonds, of which Amberside ALP is one. You can also do single company bonds, often listed on things like the Next exchange that we heard earlier. And unit trusts and OICs, again, if you go for the senior debt funds, typically speaking, the senior debt funds will be investing in a lot of infrastructure. But do have a look, some do different things. So where does Amberside ALP fit in with that? So what I've done here is, there's greater than 20 million infrastructure. Well, we're not in that space, but what that is typically listed infrastructure funds investing in the equity, and high street banks, large senior debt funds investing in the debt. What we found is that sub 20 million, the banks don't want to know. It's not big enough, and that sounds a bit silly in some respects. 20 million isn't big enough, but for the project finance arms of the bank, just isn't big enough for them to get too involved with and go through the due diligence. But under 3 million, they get excited again because it's their corporate arms, and they will look at, say, small scale projects they look at, and large scale projects they look at, and there's this gap, typically between 3 and 20 million. It could be between 3 and 15. But effectively, this is the gap where it's underserviced by the big debt lenders. And so what we're seeing is typical yields in that market, typical debt lending is going between 7 and 9%. And actually, for the same things that are going for 3.5% to 4% in the larger scale, there isn't much difference except for the scale. The contracts are the same. So we found a niche in that market that we thought, actually, this is good for retail investors. So that's where Amberside ALP was born. So who's behind Amberside ALP? Just to give you a little bit of credibility for who we are. Well, it's Amberside Capital and CH1 Investment Partners are the two lead backers. Amberside Capital is part of a large group. So we have in there Amberside Energy, that's a technical consultancy firm. Amberside Valuations, that specialise in valuations. But Amberside Advisors, that is an advisory practice to large-scale infra. To give you a little bit of experience that what we've done, we've worked on over 800 UK infrastructure projects, and largely PFI PPP projects that we've worked on, and that accounts for roughly half of all UK PFI PPPs the Amberside group has worked on. We've done a wide range of renewable and waste projects. So as an example, in the last 12 months we've worked on over 50 projects, 1.8 gigawatts of electricity, and they're processing over 5 million tonnes of waste. Just been appointed financial advisors to the North London Waste Authority for their North London Heat and Power project, and we're also the trusted advisor who recently closed a deal for 800 million of rolling stock on the Wales and Borders franchise. So other things, we are involved in the HNIP project, which is the Heat Networks Infrastructure project. So what I wanted to do next is just give you a little thing about crowd bonds. Crowd bonds have been in the press very recently. And you have to be very careful when investing in crowd bonds and know what you're doing. So I wanted to give a checklist, and this is my checklist for what you should be looking for when investing in crowd bonds. So first of all, does it have an IFISA? Is that IFISA run by a third party or run by that same provider? That normally gives a good indication. Now, there has been recent press where somebody has lied about being IFISA-able, but most crowd bonds that are actually IFISA-able are something to look for. Does it have an independent security trustee? So that is somebody completely independent of the company that is acting as a security trustee, so acting in the retail investor's best interests. Does it operate segregated accounts? So that's actually different bank accounts, so that when your money goes in, it goes into a separate bank account. Also, the fees, how does that company take its fees? Is it taking it out of your money, or is it investing your money and and then only taking it out when you've got your interest and there's a small spread on your interest for what's charging the underlying company versus what you're getting. Does it check that it's not paying to introducers? So one of the big issues that's happened recently with one company is 25% of everyone's money was going to pay a marketing company that came in to give to basically promote its bonds, and lo and behold, it couldn't get the returns it needed to repay that 25%. There are other companies out there paying as much as 20% of your money going into marketing companies. And also, ensure you know what it's going into. So understand the actual underlying investment. And just as a gross sales product here, Amberside ALP ticks all the top boxes except for the bottom one, which is, do you understand what the investment is? And it's really for you to decide and have a look at Amberside ALP and see whether it does. But the other important thing is for money to introducers, we only pay out the spread and our own money. We never pay out of anyone's money that comes to us. So I just wanted to also say some common pitfalls that investors have had, because they see a lot of things where it's property. And property sounds good, you can understand it, but do you really understand what people are investing in? Are you investing in something that's actually bricks and mortar, or is it a plan? Is it a plan without planning permission? So these are the kind of things you need to just, as investors, think about when you're investing in things like property and the assets. Is it a physical asset? What risks am I taking? Am I taking construction risk? Or I'm actually a lot earlier stage, am I taking development risk? And you'll see the returns that the companies are willing to pay for the different levels of risk go down as the risk goes on. So when you get in the early stage, over 12% returns, you're typically taking development risk. So that is, the project is not even ready to construct. So your money, if things don't go to plan, may not go there. We don't do any of that. We only take construction risk. So that is where projects are ready to go. We have a contractor, what's called an EPC contractor, and we make sure that that contractor has the necessary warranties with us, and we always take a charge on the assets, fixed and a floating. So just to give you a bit more of a sales plug about what the bonds are, we have a 5% bond maturing in 2022, a 3% bond. The 3% bond tends to be more popular for companies who want a 1-month notice period, so they're wanting more return on their cash. And we've got a January 2021 bond, which has a slightly lower interest rate. And for each of those, you can choose 6 monthly interest payments or roll them on maturity. And they are ISA eligible, but obviously your individual tax status you need to check. We also have one quite close to my heart, a Sterling Suffolk only bond. This is where we have a bond where you invest in a specific asset. This being Sterling Suffolk, a hydroponic nursery based up in Suffolk growing premium tomatoes for Waitrose. We actually have some on our stall later if you want to try one. And we're giving 8.5% January 22, or 8.25% if you want interest on maturity. But remember, this is just a bond only for this asset. You do have a first charge on the glass house, and there's 5 million of equity that's your buffer. Just to prove it exists, we've been on the One Show, ITV News, BBC News, and in some of the large daily papers. But please come and have a look for yourself and come and see us at the stall. And